Dark history events are episodes in our past marked by tragedy, moral failings, or violations of human rights, evoking both discomfort and profound reflection. Picture walking into the chapters of history where power, prejudice, and ambition crash together. These aren't just grim footnotes, they're the moments that bent the arc of whole societies. When we ask why they happened, we're not doing a school exercise, we're picking up a warning sign and a rough guide for how to build something fairer next time. Take the Holocaust. In World War II, Nazi Germany engineered a systematic genocide that murdered 6 million Jews. And it didn't stop there. People labeled undesirable, including Poles, Romani people, and disabled individuals, were targeted too. The sheer scale and cruelty show what can happen when hate and authoritarian rule are given free rein. Out of that devastation came a global reckoning, a push to reorganize priorities, create institutions like the United Nations, and write the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. The takeaway wasn't abstract, it was a clear message. Staying alert to tyranny isn't optional, it's essential. Another story we have to face is the transatlantic slave trade. For centuries, millions of Africans were torn from their homes and forced into brutal labor across the Americas. This system dehumanized them, cemented racial hierarchies, and pumped wealth into economies built on exploitation. Ending slavery didn't end its consequences. You can still feel its shockwaves in racial inequality, debates about reparations, and the ongoing work toward equity and reconciliation. It's not just a chapter about past suffering, it's about what we live with today, and here's where it gets complicated. How do we talk about this stuff? Some people worry that spotlighting the darkest moments just hardens divides. Others, especially many scholars, argue that honest reckoning is exactly how healing and progress begin. Context matters. Different cultures approach these topics in different ways, which is why teaching them takes care, sensitivity, and nuance. If you want to understand how these events take shape, look under the hood. They almost never burst out of nowhere. They often grow from a mix of social, political, economic, and cultural pressures, oppressive regimes, desperate economies, entrenched prejudice, and the rise of totalitarian ideas. The Holocaust wasn't a lightning strike. Centuries of anti-Semitism in Europe made the ground fertile. After World War I, the Treaty of Versailles left Germany economically shattered. Extremist messaging found traction, and Adolf Hitler rode public discontent and the instability of the Weimar Republic into power. Once in control, that regime turned bias into official policy and violence into law. The Rwandan Genocide in 1994 is another brutal case. In just weeks, an estimated 800,000 Tutsi and moderate Hutu were slaughtered. You can trace part of the fuel back to colonial-era divisions. Belgian authorities favored the Tutsi minority over the Hutu majority and enforced identity categories that bred resentment over decades. When civil war flared, those fault lines erupted into mass killing. And the world's failure to step in, slow responses, mixed signals, bureaucratic inertia, exposed wider indifference and mismanagement that compounded the catastrophe. Spotting these patterns matters. When we learn the recurring steps that lead to atrocity, we get better at seeing danger early. Historians and analysts keep stressing that this kind of pattern recognition is crucial for prevention. But there's a tightrope here. Digging into root causes shouldn't morph into letting perpetrators off the hook. The goal is to tell the full story without excusing the people who chose violence. Certain figures loom large in this terrain. Adolf Hitler is the emblem of how authoritarian leadership can drag a nation and the world into war and genocide. Through propaganda and total control, a charismatic but malignant leader can steer a country toward terrible ends. The ripples of his rule didn't stop when he did. They helped propel global human rights efforts, the creation of the United Nations, and the groundwork for international laws against genocide. Joseph Stalin casts a different but equally chilling shadow. His reign over the Soviet Union brought forced collectivization and the Great Purge, with millions dying from famine and political repression. Fear and censorship suffocated dissent. Some argue that rapid industrialization under his watch helped transform the Soviet Union into a superpower, but the human cost was staggering. His legacy stands as a warning about what unchecked political power and ideological zeal can do. We study leaders like these to see how governance can veer off course. They remind us that the line between order and oppression can be thin when power isn't restrained. And talking about them isn't simple. If we reduce them to cartoon villains, we miss the context, the economic stress, social dynamics, and political openings that allowed them to rise, and we miss how different societies remember and teach these periods. Then there's the atomic bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945. Those blasts ended World War II and ushered in the nuclear age. The devastation and loss of life make it impossible to ignore what modern warfare can unleash. Ever since, arguments over nuclear proliferation and disarmament have shaped diplomacy. Treaties like the Non-Proliferation Treaty were designed to curb the development and spread of nuclear weapons. And people still debate the decision itself. Some maintain the bombings were necessary to end the war quickly and may have saved more lives. At the same time, even as the Holocaust pressed the world toward codified human rights, the Cold War often tangled those ideals in power politics. And the long shadow of the slave trade keeps raising tough questions about reparations and justice. When you weave these stories together, you get a tapestry of hard lessons. Dark events push us to wrestle with human rights, international law, and how we remember collectively. They show both our capacity for harm and our ability to rebuild. They call us to remember, to teach honestly, and to act with foresight. Ultimately, they're about the future as much as the past, about recognizing danger early and preventing the next tragedy before it starts. For deeper explorations, uncensored context, and stories, history textbooks often gloss over. Check the link in the description. Follow and subscribe to History Unearthed for more dark history, ancient truths, and the lessons buried beneath the surface. So here's the real question. When the warning signs appear again, will we recognize them, or let history's darkest patterns repeat?